few words with Dennis while he's out there and before he goes. And now he's going to show how Earl is showing Tony what a walk is. He's saying he stepped off the rubber.
The umpires find Earl Weaver's actions, for the most part, quite offensive.
Do I find him funny? I like hemorrhoids.
Let me tell you how haywire Earl Weaver was. He managed Baltimore for 15 years, and 13 of those years his team finished either first or second.
ESPN Radio 97.7 and 100.1. Welcome back to Get Off My Lawn. I am Paulie, and I hope you're having a good Sunday. Today's artist of the day, Alice in Chains. Going to do something a little different. You always hear from athletes, beat writers, play-by-play guys on sports radio. You never hear from the guys like referees and umpires. So why don't we get Jim Reynolds, Major League umpire, on with us? Before we get into what it's like being an umpire, how one becomes an umpire, tell us a little bit about your charity and auction you got going on with Umps Care.
Sure. This is our sixth annual online auction. Umps Care is the official charity of Major League umpires. We've been doing this for a while. All 74 Major League umpires are involved one way or another. We have really three main initiatives. We have a children's hospital program, and what happens is crews throughout the season will visit local children's hospitals, depending, if I'm working in Cleveland. Last year we stopped by the Cleveland Clinic. We give away over 100 Build-A-Bears. We meet with the kids, talk with their parents. So we do about 12 to 15 of those a year. We also do a children's ticket program in which kids awaiting adoption, we host them out at the ballpark. So we work with the Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Dave Thomas Foundation, to name a few of the groups. And, the kids that are awaiting adoption come out, and we have 4 to 6 kids and a couple chaperones. We take them on the field and we show them how we rub up baseballs. Really, the onus behind this program was, I was lucky enough to grow up in a family where my dad could take me to a ball game, and I had uncles that took me to a ball game. And in a lot of cases, these kids don't have anybody to take them to a ball game.
Talking to Jim Reynolds, Major League Baseball umpire, and you got an auction going on currently?
Yeah, we do. And to help us raise money for those programs, we have a few fundraisers. One right now is our online auction, and there's some really great things on there. There's Major League Baseball experiences like batting practices and game tickets to all the cities in the big leagues. There's also minor league experiences. So if you live in, like Syracuse, or Pawtucket, we also have batting practices and ticketing experiences. We have signed memorabilia. Two of the people who've come on to help baseball as far as on-field operations, we're very lucky that Joe Torre and Tony La Russa are working with us now. And they're both going to the Hall of Fame this year, and they've signed some really neat things for us, and that stuff will be online. We have travel items, hotel and ticket packages where you can, bid on a hotel and tickets for a city if you want to go to San Diego, if you live in Boston, or go see, a different ballpark. And then we have some unique experiences too with, you can bid on lunch with an ump, where you can have lunch with the crew and talk to them a little bit about what we do and how we go about doing that. We have opportunity to meet ESPN directors and go behind the scenes, tour TV trucks and those kind of things. So there's a lot of great things online. It helps us raise money for those initiatives. So if you get a chance, go to umpscare.com and check it out. It's a really, really great thing.
How did you become an umpire?
Well, it's kind of a neat story with me. I did it to earn some extra money at college. I went to the University of Connecticut, and every summer I had, like every college kid, I had a typical summer job. But at the University of Connecticut, the baseball coach at the time, Andy Baylock, had a 1-credit umpire program. And this was his way of getting free and cheap umpires. It was for students, and there would be classes and rules classes that he would run. But you would do the varsity fall games. So it was scrimmages in the fall with the varsity, Big East, and then you would do their JV regular season games. UConn was one of the few programs at the time that had a JV team, and they would play community colleges and other big league schools that had teams. So that's how I got started. A friend of mine at UConn at the time was already doing it. He was a big, umpiring is something he knew he wanted to do his whole life. And so he spent a couple of years trying to drag me into it, and he finally did, and that's how we got started. We both ended up going to Major League Umpire School and then worked our way up through the minors. So
Well, being that we're in Syracuse and you went to UConn, do you follow the basketball team at UConn, and were you surprised by their run this year?
Well, it's interesting. I'm a huge UConn fan. In Connecticut, we don't have much to cheer for ever since the Whalers left. But UConn basketball, both men and women, is huge. Unbelievably surprised. This was one of the nice years of being a UConn fan. I was there in '87. That was my first year at the University of Connecticut. We hadn't done anything. Calhoun just come on board. We won the NIT, and to show you, where we started. When we won the NIT, we almost burned the campus down. I mean, that's how little we were used to winning, right? Yeah. And so we were all excited, and we've been blessed enough to have some really good teams. We had one team that had 5 guys drafted in the first round, and there's been some expectations. And you know this, I mean, you're in Syracuse, right? You have teams that have expectations and then teams that don't. It's sometimes really nice to root for a team where there's no expectations, where you don't want, you're not supposed to win every game. And that's what made this run. And even, in 2011, there's a lot of parallels that I'm sure that you guys have spent a lot of time talking about. That made this ride really, really fun. And then, of course, for the girls to win it all, too, in the same year is exciting for us. So.
Talking to Jim Reynolds, Major League umpire, you came up through the New York Penn League. What's that like as a minor league umpire coming up through cities like Auburn, which is right down the road from us?
Yeah, right. But we don't know any better. That's why they start you in cities like that, I think, right? I came out of umpire school, and we were just so excited. The guy that dragged me into umpiring, his name is Dan Isagna. He is from Connecticut also. Danny and I have been both lucky enough to get to the big leagues. And so Danny and I were actually partners in the Penn League that year. So it was a really neat experience for us, right? Like, we're wide-eyed, we're eager. And then you show up in Pittsfield and Auburn, and you're just so happy to be there. I remember our first game ever was in Erie. Erie at the time was in the Penn League. It was also the Marlins organizational first game. So they had all the brass there, and it was a big deal. And Danny and I were so excited and nervous. And, we had never walked on a professional baseball field before. It went 15 innings. By the time, Erie's a very small park, and they had parts of the field cordoned off for VIPs and fans. And by the time the game ended, we were freezing and there was nobody left. So it was a very good introductory into the minor league experience. Big hoopla, and then by the end, nobody really is there to care. So, but it was interesting. You go through Auburn, you see the big prison downtown, stuff that I had never seen before. So, in the Penn League at that time, there were a lot of one-game stands, so we'd work a game and drive 2 or 3 hours, and then work another game and drive 2 or 3 hours. So it was a very good indoctrination. I loved my time in the Penn League.
You've been in the ALCS, All-Star games. Are there butterflies for an umpire as much as there are for players going into big games and situations like that?
Yeah, for sure. It's the anticipation, right? I played football my whole life when I was a kid in high school and stuff, and it's always that nervous energy you feel right before the kickoff. And then once you make contact with somebody, once you get a hit once, you kind of get into it. Very much like that. It's the anticipation of the game. It's all that. But once you step on the field and once you put the ball in play and once you get going, your instincts take over. But yeah, there's a lot of that for sure.
Tell us about replay so far this season. I'm old school. I don't like it. How has it been for umpires this year?
Well, it's clearly been a change in working environment, let's say. Instead of managers coming out there and running around and screaming at you, you missed it. It's a very nice leisurely stroll. Jimmy, what do you got there? Well, I had him safe. They turn around. We kind of look in their dugout to see if they're going to challenge it. If they don't challenge it, he usually says, hey, nice call, or I guess we're not going to challenge that, and they go away. If they're going to challenge it, you go over the headset, and so, and either you change the call or it gets upheld. Completely different than what we're used to, right? The yelling, the screaming, the clowning of us is kind of getting away from that, which I'm kind of a big fan of. I like to consider myself a professional and try to treat people professionally. I never really thought that was appropriate, but I understand that it's part of the game too. So that part is different. I think what people are learning, a couple things, right? We're all for getting the play right, no matter what means it is. I think people were surprised that we would be a proponent of replay. But at the end of the day, we want to get the play right too. No matter what the call was. Before replay, if I had a team that was 20 games out playing a team that was 15 games out, and the score was 8-1 in the eighth inning at the end of September, and I missed a call, it bothered me. It didn't matter who was playing, what the situation was. It's my job to be out there and be right. Of course, we all know that we're not going to get everything right. But at the end of the day, it bothers the umpires more than it bothers anybody else. I promise you that. And so this is, I think this is a positive tool and a step in that direction about getting the play right for sure.
Couple more things before we let you go here quick. Is there anything you would change? You brought up that leisurely stroll that they do now. Should teams be able to look at the tape first, or should it be just kind of a, hey, if you're going to challenge it, challenge it? Well,
again, I think for me, it's about getting it right. So I certainly don't want to penalize anybody from not being able to use replay if the call is wrong. So if they want to come out, I'm a proponent of come on out here and we'll wait, right? Yeah. But if they choose to do it the other way around, the point is to get the play right. And, baseball, we're still, we got a lot of smart people working on this. We clearly, anytime you roll something out this significant, there are going to be changes. In 3 years' time from now, it's certainly not going to look like it does now, and we'll get it right. There's enough smart people working on this. There's going to be enough positive input. I think everybody's intent here is the same, so at the end of the day, we'll get it right. But I certainly, to answer your question specifically, I'm not, however they want to go about doing it, coming out there and arguing or coming out there and challenging, I want them, I'm not going to handcuff them, and I don't think they should be handcuffed if the play is wrong.
All right, talking to Jim Reynolds, what's the best thing you've ever been on the field for as a major league umpire, or even as you were coming up in the New York Penn League? What's the one thing that sticks out most to you were on the field for?
I'm not from Detroit. I'm a Connecticut kid. I grew up. I live in Arizona now, but I was lucky enough to be on the field or work the last game in Old Tiger Stadium. And I actually worked the first game in New Tiger Stadium. But I working the last game in Old Tiger Stadium, I was really, first of all, a lot of the guys came to our locker room and said hi, some of the old-timers, K-Line and those kind of guys. And you're just, the gentlemen and the people they are. But one of the things that I always remember was they were introducing a lot of the old Tigers. And they're coming through the outfield wall, and they're, walking up, and people are, And one of the things that really stuck with me was how much back in the old days those old-timers were part of the community, because they would say, when they would introduce them, they would say, whoever played for the Tigers for 12 years and then became a city councilman or had businesses in Detroit or stayed in the community. And that's the one thing that it was really, really a neat experience for me, because that's certainly not, the environment in which, the players are in today. And it was really, it kind of reset the clock for me and made me realize, how long this game's been going on and the input and the importance of these players back in the old days, not only to the teams, but to the communities.
Finally, before we let you go, one more time, if you could hit up where people can get on the auction for Umps Care.
Sure. Again, Umps Care, the official charity of Major League Umpires, we're holding one of our most important fundraisers this year. You can log on to www.mlb.com/umpscare, UMPSCARE, and there's a lot of great things going on there. So,
thanks for your time. That was great stuff.
Thanks, Paulie.
Jim Reynolds, Major League Baseball umpire, thought that was pretty cool, his take on replay and how it's eliminated the arguing with the umps, and the umps like that, believe it or not. They don't like being made a clown of on the baseball field. Still to come, Jonathan Coachman. Here's a little more Alice in Chains Artist of the Week on ESPN Radio, 97.7 and 100.1.